Very excited for this episode of the Delhi podcast. There was a huge announcement last week involving the Perth Heat. So I'm excited to talk to Steve, the CEO, and Patrick, the Chief Bitcoin Officer. Thanks for coming on, guys.
Thanks so much for having us.
So can you please describe what you've done and what you've announced last week?
I think what we've announced is the future of sport. And while the Perth Heat baseball club are the first team in world sport to be adopting a Bitcoin standard, what we'll see now in the coming months and future years is a tsunami of teams which will follow. So we've been really encouraged by what's been happening in the Bitcoin community for quite some time now. But what we thought the community wanted was a team that was all in. So it's been really nice seeing all the piecemeal exercises that some teams have been part of, but we wanted to make sure that if we were going to step forward, we wanted to be pioneers with what we did and make sure that other teams can now follow by understanding what it means to be operating on a Bitcoin standard.
Can you describe what a Bitcoin standard means to you guys, and I guess what goes into that?
Yeah, well, I think it's something that's going to be that will continue to evolve and develop. So, certainly some of the things that we can speak about is that we now hold Bitcoin on our balance sheet. There's a first part of it. Payments to players and staff will be now paid in Bitcoin. You can jump online and you can purchase our new range of merchandise. With Bitcoin on the Lightning Network via OpenNode. You can purchase tickets to our movie night with Bitcoin. So there's also memberships that we're selling with Bitcoin, and once we move into the season, ballpark concessions will also have that option as well. So there's parts of the organisation that will grow with what we've launched last week, and we're really excited by the future. We feel this is just the beginning.
Yeah, no, that's awesome to hear, and a lot of teams have incorporated little bits and pieces, but obviously going first. And I think I almost fell off my chair when I started reading the announcement. I couldn't believe it. It's very cool. So how does a process like this start? Like, is it an idea from one of you guys, a board member, team owner? How does it start?
Well, it was started by myself and Patrick. So, we started having discussions back at the end of 2019, early 2020. Patrick, as our Chief Bitcoin Officer, certainly is the leader in the discussion, and I would be what I just described as a Bitcoin pleb, and I'm continually learning more each day. But as we continue to look at what the organisation needed to do to move forward and what was going to make us a better organisation, it soon became very apparent there was only one thing we needed to do to improve the Perth Heat, and that was to transform to a Bitcoin standard as quickly as possible. Thankfully, I've got a very supportive board who were all eyes and ears in regards to wanting to know more, and the discussions continually led us to the announcement last week. Yeah,
so you talk to the board, they get on board, and then like logistically, what happens next when you say, okay, we're going to do this?
Well, it's a bit by bit process. So the advancements in technology have improved so much over the last 12, 24 months that I think it's becoming a lot easier now for organisations to operate on a Bitcoin standard. Would this have been possible 24 months ago? It certainly would have been a lot more difficult, but the infrastructure and the tools are behind us, and we're always enhancing those tools to be able to operate in a more efficient manner. So once we committed that we wanted to move towards operating on a Bitcoin standard, it was a process of, we need to speak to staff, we need to speak to players, we needed to go through that process. But then also there's the education with your accounts department. So there's different parts within the organisation that you continue to educate. And part of that education is in some ways happening now as we finally roll out into operating on a Bitcoin standard. You see how the processes take place, and it's a lot easier to understand as opposed to chatting them to them. But the CBO has been the best recruit we've made, I think, in the last 5 years. And it's a role that I urge now all companies to consider quickly and strongly, because by having the right people in place, your organisation will be more efficient for it.
Yeah. Now, Patrick, the Chief Bitcoin Officer role, I'm sure a lot of people on Bitcoin Twitter saw that and say that is their dream job. Can you describe what it's like, I guess, to get the tap on the shoulder, or like what does your role involve, and how did that come about, and a little bit about your background?
Yeah, well, it sort of morphs in with what Steve said as to how this all got started, right? It got started as a casual conversation, and I think, like you well know, right? You're involved with Bitcoin for any amount of time, and it slowly takes over your thought process and seeps into other areas of life, and you start to fancy yourself as a bit of as an orange pillar. And the more that you do it, the more often you talk to people, the more often you get an understanding of people that maybe haven't been exposed to Bitcoin as much as you have, about some of their pain points or what they have questions on. The more you sharpen those skills and you start to develop a routine for bringing people on board as quick as you can, right? And it's not an easy process. It certainly has gotten easier over the last 24 months as more and more education has come into the space. There's people like Michael Saylor, there's people like Parker Lewis, Nick Bhatia, all of these individuals who continually pump out great information. That helps the process. But you start with Steve, and we just had casual conversations. And as soon as you come across someone that is able to, or is open enough, number one, and has enough time and energy to put into thinking that, okay, this actually makes sense, right? And the hard part is you have to overcome so many hurdles before you can even get to Bitcoin, right? There is such a dry area in people's understandings of what money is in general. That's always the hardest part, right? This is not a process that takes 5 minutes. You have to go back and you have to trace people's understanding of, do you actually know what money is, right? And 99.9% of the people that you come in contact with on a daily basis have no idea. They're in a system that has worked for them, or they think it has worked for them their entire lives. They think they work, they make money, they get the things, and some things they can afford, some things they can't, and they think the system just trickles on. So really, you first have to educate people about money and what money is, right? That money is energy, and it is a tool and a technology, and it can be improved. And once you do all of those things on an individual basis, like with Steve, he's intelligent enough to go, okay, well, this makes sense for me personally. If it makes sense for an individual, and an organization is simply a collective of individuals whose energy is pointed at a common goal, well, then it's going to make sense on an organizational level. Why hasn't this been done before? And then you say, the process of Steve being orange pilled to actually getting to this point, a few days ago, we were actually able to announce it. It was a long road, and it was about understanding, well, why hadn't this been done before, right? And Steve mentioned the infrastructure, all the things that have changed to make this really easy. And it was internal conversations with Steve, with the leadership team of how do we go about doing this, and what is the best way to do it? Is the best way we just put Bitcoin on the balance sheet, right? We don't have to tell anybody. We just plug into the network, and we put it on there. We let the number go up, technology do what it does, and we benefit from that system. Is that the maximum amount of energy that we can unlock with this new technology? Like, is this the best result we're going to get from it? Or do we do something more? And then once we decided that actually this is an opportunity where we can show the world, right? As a Bitcoiner myself, as a pleb, this is everything that I have ever wanted to see from a company. That's what we were trying to build. It's like, how do we show people that this is going to work? Well, the only way is just to do it, is to flat out do it, and do it all the way that we possibly can. And luckily for us, the infrastructure was built up where it became, do we become a completely sovereign company where we're looking after every aspect of this? I mean, we could if we wanted to. The trade-off there and the conversations that came up was, okay, well, then it's about how much time is it going to take us to get to that level, and what are we missing out in the meantime? Right? It's like a trade-off. Or do we use some of the leverage that is already there with existing companies like OpenNode, like our other partners, where we can get tapped in now? And like Steve said, you learn so much more like in this process, where really my job early on was to be sort of a educator in the space of, this is what's available, these are the options. And as Bitcoin is always changing, the landscape is always changing, the companies involved with Bitcoin are always changing. It really is a full-time job just to keep on top of it, right? And I probably wouldn't even do half of keeping on top of it. You just are skimming as much information as you can, as quickly as you can. So my role becomes educating those involved, what's possible. And then now in this transfer to actually doing it, it becomes communicating with the companies that we are involved with to make sure that we're leveraging the tools as much as we can and keeping the board up to date. Now, the fun part is, from here moving forward, because all of the work has been done, my job now is essentially to show up to the boardroom meetings once a month and say, nothing has changed. We get more Bitcoin and we hold it. And then we do the same thing next month. As long as we're keeping up to date with our partners and we're keeping the education going and sort of leveraging as much as we can. The financial side of things is easy. It's more integrating with the network that we are now working on as a CBO.
No, that is awesome. And what were some of the big questions from the board members, or say like the accounting department, you know, early on when you brought this up, and how did you answer those questions?
Probably the easiest way to think about it from an organizational point of view rather than an individual point of view was what are the problems that Bitcoin solves right now, right? Even if you explain, okay, this is a better money, right? And money is a technology. If it's improved, any efficiency that we're able to find there is free energy in your pocket, right? Free money in your pocket that you are gaining that you didn't have access to before. On an individual level, that's easy to sort of think about that. But for the Perth Heat, it's more about the Bitcoin network. Like the little wins right now that we can get by plugging into the network itself is really what Steve is all about, and the board was all about. Well, this affects our bottom line right now. This improves the health, the wealth of our players right now, and things like easy things like the fact that the Perth Heat, when we play the season, there are a lot of internationals that come in. They need to be paid as fast as possible. In the legacy system, they are watered down with having to go 5 days without pay, or a week without pay, because they have to go to the bank. They got to set up the account. They got to get paid in Australian dollars. They forget some. A driver's license, something like that. And all of that time when they should be on the baseball field, right? You know this, being in professional sports. It's like you want to get cohesion with the team. You want to meet everyone on the team. You want to be playing as much as possible because you're getting paid to play baseball. You're not getting paid to go to the bank. Well, we can eliminate that completely. All of the work that was behind doing that as an organization. We're not a huge organization with 1,000 employees. Any hour that is taken away from other work is lost work, especially when it doesn't need to be done now. That was the only way we could do it, right? That was the legacy system. We had to operate in that space. Well, now, just by plugging into the Bitcoin network, we no longer have to do that. And all of those hours are saved. And individuals can get paid immediately. They can get paid in any currency that they like. We are paying out in Bitcoin, right? Because that is what we are hoping that people save in, and they understand the technology. And part of that pressure is on me to make sure that the players, the staff, the board, Steve, understand the benefits of saving in Bitcoin and using Bitcoin as the standard for operating. But those little wins of just those little time savings, right? Those add up again and again and again. And the Bitcoin network is what is providing that, right? Not the returns from the number go up technology. It's just the network. And that's the easy sell.
Yeah, no, that's great. And what has the education process been like for the players so far, and what do you plan to do in the future?
I'll let you go.
I was just going to say it is ongoing. So yeah, we continually meet with our leadership group and talk through how that process will take place. But they've been really, really encouraged. They see us as a progressive sporting organisation, and from what we can judge weekly with it, they want to know more. They want to continue to dip their toes in and understand how can they benefit from the Bitcoin network, as Patrick's mentioned. So now that we've got through the first round of the pay cycle, which was on Friday last week, people continue to see the ease of how the system works, how wallets work, and how transferring Bitcoin has adapted and evolved. So it's an ongoing education that we have with them, but so far all the signs have been super encouraging.
Yeah, that's awesome. And what does the league think about this? Because obviously, by you guys plugging into the Bitcoin network, there's a lot of, benefits like you mentioned before. But the exposure that it's got, for the Perth Heat going viral globally in the Bitcoin community, what has the league said about this move?
Baseball WA and Baseball Australia, for that matter, have been incredibly supportive. So we haven't had any issues with putting this forward or being granted permission. And I guess this is what we'll see moving forward. We are in a very unique position. You would understand the NBA pretty well, and the strict guidelines around most things. In terms of partnerships and contracts and what you can and can't do. We've got the opportunity to be unique here, and we can change the rules somewhat. And that's what's most exciting about what we're about to do. Whatever has been done, it's about to be redone and done in a much better way. We've got some pretty cool events planned, and what we'll see in that space through the Bitcoin network and the community will just blow people away. Look at, I guess, a partnership in the NBA, which they've started with some exchanges, and you look at the logo on the chest, and it's almost 0 by 0. You cannot break that guideline by a millimeter. That's what a partnership looks like, if you want to be on the jersey of an NBA team. Well, we've got a fair bit more flexibility So we've got some ideas, and it's been funny because we've bounced, Patrick and I, and with staff in the office, a few things about what we'd like to do. But since Wednesday, when the announcements come, and then other people have bounced more ideas into it, we've thought, wow, okay, yeah, let's go. And we're ready to play ball, and that's what's giving us a lot of energy, and we look forward to being able to announce in the coming weeks and months.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then I guess since the announcement, what has, like, have you guys phones just been blowing up from, obviously the Bitcoin community, but what about other sports franchises in Australia or around the world?
Everywhere and anywhere, really. It's been wonderful. We've been overwhelmed by it, but we had a feeling this would happen. But we want more and more calls to come forward because we want these organisations to follow. It's great that we're the first, and we're proud to be the pioneers of what we're doing. But now the more companies that jump on quicker, it will be the better for the community. And it will improve our ability to operate on a Bitcoin standard as well. So everyone's intrigued, but I think what's probably been the nicest part of it has been how encouraging it's been, and the support that we've had from teams across Australia, and then from teams in other parts of the world. Everyone's been super supportive, and we're so thankful for the way that the Bitcoin community and the universe have accepted and allowed us to come in.
Yeah. How are you going to go about, I guess, like sharing your playbook for doing this? Kind of like Michael Saylor's done, earlier in the year for other companies that are trying to plug into the Bitcoin network. Do you have any plans for that?
Well, from just a Bitcoin point of view, I mean, you mentioned the big fanfare that has happened because of this announcement. We've seen quite a lot of interaction, but even leading up to this, with the people that we have interacted with in the community, it's been all positive, right? No one has said this is not going to work, it's too early, or they don't have time for us. Anyone that we have reached out to in the community has been positive. They've helped us down a path. They've pushed us certain directions because, like I said before, we weren't exactly sure how this was going to work out. Once you make the decision, it's like, okay, well, how do we actually get there? What does the roadmap look like? And even along that process, you talk to these individuals, and the more that you put it out there in the universe that this is what is happening, this is the direction you're going, we start to get whispers of, okay, well, this is happening also here. And you start to share your playbook even inside the community of just as this is emerging, and it's happening quicker and quicker and quicker. And companies, organizations reaching out since then and saying, okay, well, what exactly were the steps, right? Because it's not like, we saw Michael Saylor do it so beautifully with MicroStrategy, and makes so much sense for a company of that scale. But a company of that scale has resources to be able to do these things, resources that, to be frank, we just don't have at the size of our organization and the revenue that comes in. And we just don't have that, where that is where someone like myself slots in, where you can actually add value, right? If you have an understanding, you can help guide these organizations, these teams through this process. And there will be a web of individuals that pop up just like myself who can do that, and who organizations are looking for, right? Because things are changing so quickly. You need someone to help navigate you. And there will be companies that spring up around that as well. But we've seen just a number of, I don't want to say leak any names or anything, but there are a number of organizations who are highly interested in doing the exact same thing, and who may not see the same benefits from coming out and publicly announcing that we are doing all of these aspects or one of these aspects. But certainly, as Steve said before, there is a tsunami of teams behind us, and the partners that we have aligned ourselves with, they're experiencing the same thing, right? They're going to need individuals where they need a test case to see, well, is this possible? Like, we can talk as a network that this is actually going to work, and it's going to improve everything around us. Like the classic Bitcoin fixes this. This is a test to see if, is that true? Like, we think that Bitcoin is going to change sports. We think it's going to change sports for the better. And I don't think that is we're not making some grandiose statement. I think if you follow through from first principles to the fact, like to how sports operates at the moment, I think Bitcoin changes it for the positive. And I think it's a very easy path. It's not a quick path, but it's a very easy path to get there once you understand the consensus protocol, how the network works, the incentive models that spring up because of that. You can draw a very direct line to improve sports, which improves energy for the entire world. And I think more and more companies are going to see that and jump on board. And this is, as Steve said, this is just the tip of the iceberg. It's going to come so much quicker.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I would love to dive a little bit deeper on each of those aspects that you mentioned about how you actually go about it, and anything that, you're not comfortable sharing, that's fine. But for example, the payment of players, Like, is it locked in Bitcoin when you know, sign your contract? Is it locked at the price at the start of the year? And then you just get a Bitcoin payout each month, you know, which I would love to do, or is it converted at the time of the payout? Like, how does all that work?
Well, we've got current agreements with our players, which were signed, you know, prior to our launch, and they're all in Australian dollars. So we'll honour the value of that agreement, and pay them out, you know, that amount. Is there scope to change that moving forward? Yeah, absolutely. And you know, there's been a great example of in the NFL of what, you know, Russell Okon has done. But you know, since the announcement, we've also had a player that's approached us and asked if he can have 5 years of his salary paid up front in Bitcoin. So we can already see the mindset of the players and what they would like to do. So at the moment, we're not, you know, the day of our pay cycle, you know, they'll be paid out what the value of their agreement is. So it's not going to be, you know, subject to, you know, what the price of Bitcoin may have been a couple of days prior to payday. And we'll continue to work through that as they become comfortable, as the education improves, and they would like to do things in a certain manner.
Yeah, very.
Yeah, well, as Steve mentions there, the big difference, which I think we have had a few people reach out and organizations ask a question very similar to that, in that, you know, you've seen the announcements of Russell or Aaron Rodgers or Saquon Barkley, who are they are leading from the front on an individual level, saying this has value. I see the value in it. I'm going to let it be known that I'm doing this with Bitcoin. But I, as an individual, am doing this. The big difference that we are trying to set here by operating on a Bitcoin standard is saying that now the default is the best money ever, right? The default is Bitcoin. That's what we're giving you. Now, it's our job, or my job specifically, to educate everyone inside the organization to hopefully orange pill them into saying, listen, yes, there are going to be fiat bills that you have to pay, but this actually makes you a better version of you by holding Bitcoin. This will allow you a better future. It allows you to become a better baseball player, right? Because now no longer do you have to go home at night and be the next Warren Buffett, you know, trying to outpace inflation. You don't have to do that. People don't even know what inflation is, right? This is like the fifth conversation. you start with those inflation numbers, and then slowly but surely you get there. But the big thing is the default is now Bitcoin. We are paying you out in Bitcoin. It is up to you if you want to transfer that. But the big difference is Bitcoin is now the standard. If you want to deviate from that, you're going to have to do your homework as to why you would possibly want fiat, and that's a longer question to answer than why you would want Bitcoin, right? That's like you know, you could get War and Peace in Mandarin, and you could probably finish that book. And I don't even speak Mandarin, but I could finish that book before you figured out why you would want fiat, right? It's such a long, convoluted process that now that we are offering Bitcoin to the players, to the staff, to the organization, we're holding it on our balance sheet as a testament to, you know, if there was any reservation from the players or from the staff or anyone involved, it's like, well, we're practicing what we preach, right? This is how it's going to benefit us as an organization. This is how it's going to benefit you as an individual. If you want to do extra stuff, if you want to play other games, you can do that, but the default is Bitcoin going forward.
Yeah, no, very cool. And then what about for like the at the game, like someone wants a meat pie or, you know, a drink or something, like how does that process work, you know, from the Perth Heat's viewpoint with someone trying to pay with Bitcoin?
Well, we understand the landscape of the city at the moment. Yeah, we're not living in Miami at the moment. We appreciate the amount of people that could be operating on a Bitcoin standard within our city. So we need to make sure that we can cater for everyone initially. So they'll have the option: would they like to pay out in fiat, or would they like to pay with Bitcoin? So we'll have that opportunity within the ballpark and concession stands. And we know that slowly over time that will continue to evolve into more people paying with Bitcoin. It's like when you initially said that you'd be able to buy your long Mac with your watch and just tap and go at the coffee shop. Everyone said no, that's not going to happen. But as time progressed, it's just the norm now, and we know that within a certain space of time, probably a lot quicker than what most people think, that will be the common practice.
Yeah, and now are you using OpenNode to accept the in-game purchases?
Yeah, well, they're our partner in terms of the Lightning Network and who we've used online as our platform. And obviously the speed of the Lightning Network is fantastic. So they'll be our partner in stadium or in ballpark as well.
Yeah, yeah, and I got to disclose, like I'm an investor in OpenNode, and I guess one of the big advantages, which I don't know how much you guys this played into your decision to go with them, but having a 1% flat fee versus the Visa networks, you know, what 2 to 3% for a transaction, did that play into it at all?
Absolutely. As chief executive, my responsibility, or part of my responsibility, is to improve the business across every avenue, every platform. If I can save 1% on every transaction, multiply that over the entire year, there's a fair saving. Then you multiply or compound over 5 years, and there's a huge saving. And not only that, the transaction's instant. I want my money now, not in 5 days' time. So yeah, there's certainly the advantages of operating and the efficiencies of operating on the Lightning Network. Once you begin to understand them, it's almost you're thinking, why haven't we done this earlier? What have we been waiting for? And at the end of the day, Bitcoin now has been with us for 12 years. Patrick says it really well. It says, the train's left. You better have some fast legs if you want to catch up to it. And we hope that we're going to educate that process and allow people to jump on.
Yeah. What about, I guess, your existing sponsors or new sponsors coming on board? Are they, I guess, asking questions and part of this education process and wanting to get on board as well?
Yeah, again, extremely supportive of the decision. You know, like our players and our fans and members have had questions, but they also understand the reasons why we're doing it, and yeah, that we're an innovative sports organisation and the impact that we'd like to have, you know, by operating on a Bitcoin standard. So, you know, moving forward, you know, we'd like to accept all our sponsorships with Bitcoin, and currently with the discussions we're having with, you know, several organisations in the United States, that will happen very soon. But if we want to operate on a Bitcoin standard, then it makes sense to take our partnerships in Bitcoin and hold all that Bitcoin on our balance sheet.
Yeah, yeah. And then what about the balance sheet or the Bitcoin treasury? Is that just like you straight convert it straight away, or it's a ongoing process? I mean, how do you think about that? And is it something you just are going to hold like heading into this cycle, or what are the long-term plans for that?
I think there's one word: hodl.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think the reality is the organization, the leadership of the organization, including Steve and the rest of the board, they have recognized. It's really hard not to recognize, right? Especially when you've been exposed to the potential upside and the returns that have happened to companies that have embraced Bitcoin, and then you look at the fit of what the network can do, and even like taking it back to what you said before about the existing sponsorships that are in place, the existing partners that are in space. Like, we have seen nothing but intrigue from everyone that we have talked to in the space, fans of the team that we have talked to in the space. There has been intrigue. There has been, Bitcoin is so much more mainstream. It may not be that everyone has Bitcoin, but certainly in the last 4 years, Bitcoin has made such inroads. There's so much education. People know what fiat means. There's so much information out there, but there's still a bridge to, okay, well, how do I actually participate in that? Is it actually legitimate? And the Perth Heat, a pillar in the community, if they come out and they say this thing is legitimate, this is what we are putting our energy behind to, this is what we're saving in, that just opens up the floor to discussions like this with the sponsors, with the players, with everyone involved. And probably the biggest eye-opening experience for people is that it's not terribly complicated. You know, I go back to that process where we were leading up to what was the roadmap actually going to look like for this. And one of the biggest surprises for me is, well, for everyone involved really, has been there was so much work up until a certain point where we're like, okay, this is how we're going to do it. And then everyone imagined, well, there's going to be this huge amount of work to actually make it happen. And just that's not the case. And the more and more we've shared that with people, I mean, tapping into OpenNode is as easy as, it's filling out, it's creating a new email account. And we are essentially leveraging all of the Bitcoin network and the Lightning Network has to offer with that same amount of setup process. It's a seamless transition, right? Even to holding Bitcoin on the balance sheet. Like, how are we going to do that from an organizational point? Who's going to hold the keys? What are we going to do with those things? These questions that keep coming up. And even if you're an experienced Bitcoiner and you may have some sort of a multi-sig account that you've set up for yourself, that's great for you as an individual, but how does that transfer to your small business? Like, what does that look like legally? What does it look like with all of those things? Every aspect that we have looked at, everything that we thought this is going to take, this is, if it's anything like the legacy system, it's going to take us 6 months to get through this stuff. And it took days, like just the onboarding process has been so quick. And then sharing that with sponsors, sharing that with the fans and saying, listen, it is as easy as this. And like Steve said, if you have those efficiencies available to you, it's almost, then, you sort of slow down and go, why hasn't anyone else thought of this? What are we doing? What information do we have that no one else has? And why don't they have that information? And luckily enough, after the due diligence process, it really is that the information hasn't been out there. So this is a huge play on that asymmetry in access to information.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's just incredible. And there's been a lot of announcements over the last 12 months, but this one, I think, being in the sports world has really excited me, and I think given me something that I can share with other people in the sports world to point to and say, look, this is what another team is doing. So yeah, congrats to you both and the team. It's unreal. Where can we point people to find more on the internet, follow your, I guess, Bitcoin journey, and learn more from you guys?
Yeah, certainly through all our digital platforms. So obviously on Twitter at Perth Heat. We've got the Bitcoin baseball team or Bitcoin Perth Heat as a reference point if you'd like to go on and purchase some merchandise. So we've released our first brand of jerseys and also caps. There's also an international membership that you can purchase through there. So that's Bitcoin Perth Heat, and then obviously our website has got updated information as well. So this is very much the beginning. And as you just mentioned there's been a lot in this space in the last 12 months, but it's really been a piecemeal exercise. We've effectively got all our Bitcoiners gone, we're in, and we're excited to be the first. And really, we can't wait to see who will be the next team that joins us, and the next team after, and then the next team after, and then which league in the world will be the first league to embrace the Bitcoin standard. There's so much of the evolution to go, but this is going to accelerate quickly. And this is the future of sport. Get used to it, be ready for it, embrace it, love it.
No,
that's awesome. Patrick, do you have anything to add?
No, that's it. I would say, if this is your first exposure to Bitcoin talk, I would suggest, as Steve said, it really has been, it's been 12 years of waiting for an opportunity like this for organizations like ours. But really the train has left the station now. And now if you do want to participate, it is about trying to get up to speed as quick as you can. That's all you can do now, is get as much information as you can from trusted sources. And the educational content in Bitcoin has gotten so much better. So just reach out on Twitter if you're interested, or to any of the people, right? It's really easy to get access to quality information now, and get ready, because like Steve said, this we didn't really get into it here, but this changes the shape of sports, right? This is not just about an organization getting better. This is a peek into the future of sports, and how Bitcoin and all of the incentive models that come from Bitcoin, how that changes human action, and how that will lead to a better sports, a better world in the future. Insert any meme you want there, but things are looking bright, and we're happy to be a part of the Bitcoin future.
Thank you both for coming on. Can't wait to follow your journey, and best of luck. Hey guys, if you like this video, be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel at Matthew Daly. And while you're there, check out the Daly podcast playlist for more episodes. Thanks for tuning in.